Hi all, and welcome to How to Be an Ally to Asexual and Aromantic Identities with We the World. My name is Callum, and I use they, him pronouns, and I live on a traditional land of the Munsee Lenape in northwest New Jersey. I'm going to start off with some important terms to know. Throughout this presentation tonight, a lot of concepts are going to be confusing, but this is just a light overview of the asexual and aromantic spectrums. And you can always follow up with us afterwards with more questions. We'll have an email address at the end that you can email, or a lot of these questions can be found on Google. So to start, what the asexual spectrum is to fall on the spectrum of asexuality and to not be allosexual. So this can vary from feeling no sexual attraction at all to rarely feeling it, fluctuating between how much and how often you feel sexual attraction. Allosexual is someone who regularly feels sexual attraction, which is a majority of the population. So this is what most people would identify as allosexual. Aromantic spectrum is to fall or on the aromantic spectrum and to not be alloromantic. So again, this is aromantic is pretty much the same definitions as asexual, but with asexual, it's about sexuality and sexual attraction, while aromanticism is about romantic feelings and attraction. So people in the romantic spectrum may feel no romantic attraction, rarely feel it, fluctuate between how often and how much they feel romantic attraction. And then alloromantic, on the other hand, is how one is someone who feels romantic attraction regularly. Again, most of the population is allosexual and alloromantic, meaning that they feel sexual attraction and romantic attraction regularly. So an important concept here is that not all aromantic people are asexual and vice versa. So someone may be aromantic and pansexual, or biromantic and asexual. And we'll talk about more of what that means in a little bit. So a big concept here that can get really confusing, but is important for understanding people on these spectrums, is attraction versus desire. So attraction is interest in a specific person. So this is looking at your partner, someone you have interest in, and saying, like, I want to have sex with that person. While desire, on the other hand, is just wanting to do an activity. So someone might just enjoy holding hands or kissing and just want to do those things, but with who, it doesn't matter, and that desire isn't directed at anyone. So attraction is when you specifically look at someone and want something with them, but desire is more of just wanting the activity itself. So to continue this, sexual attraction is wanting to have sex with a specific person. So again, you look at someone and you would say that you want to have sexual activity with them. Sexual desire, on the other hand, is just wanting the act of sex in general, and it's generally not just at anyone specific. So again, this is more about just wanting the act itself versus wanting to do that with someone specific. Arousal is the feeling of excitement or being turned on. So what this means is that people who are asexual, and you can hear me call them aces a lot because that is the shortened version of asexual, can have a libido, which is desire, feel aroused, and want and have sex and masturbate, but not feel sexual attraction. Again, I understand that's a hard concept, but that's about the gist of it. It's being asexual and aromantic, it's all about the attraction part. It has nothing to do with desire and actually doing these things. You can have desire and do sexual things or romantic things, but there's no attraction part there. So romantic attraction is, like I said, everything's just going to be the opposite of the sexual definition. So feeling romantic feelings towards a specific person. The romance part gets a little bit more tricky also because what is romantic can differ from person to person. So we're going to be talking a little bit in general, and we're going to get to specific definitions for people in the community later on. Romantic desire is wanting to engage in romance or wanting to engage in romantic actions, but not with anyone specific. Again, so this means that people may engage in or want to engage in romantically coded activities, which can vary from person to person, but not feel the attraction towards a specific person. So we're going to talk about types of attraction. So these are suffixes that can be added that are types of different attractions that people can have. So I think people might struggle here to understand that there are different types of attraction. There aren't just you look at someone and all the attractions the same. So we're going to talk about it in a second, but it's called the split attraction model, meaning that these types of attraction are defined differently for one person. So when someone who's allosexual and aromantic, when they look at someone or be interested in a certain type of people or gender, those things are usually all the same. So if someone is bisexual, they just say they're bisexual because they're also biromantic. But people can be bisexual and homoromantic and panesthetic and so on. And we'll talk about that. But some of the suffixes right now, aesthetic attraction is attracting to someone's appearances and how they look and present themselves. So this is the part of looking at someone and being like, wow, I love their clothing, their face is really nice, they have gorgeous eyes, that type of stuff. Sensual attraction is wanting touch with someone, but this isn't necessarily sexual touch. So this will be like hand-holding, hugging, cuddling, that type of stuff is usually what people mean when they talk about sensual attraction. So sensual attraction, looking at someone and saying, I want to hold that person's hand. Emotional attraction is the attraction on an emotional level and is desire to form an emotional bond. Platonic attraction is desire to form a friendship with a specific person. This next one is going to be a tricky concept to explain and understand. So queer platonic is an attraction that isn't just someone's just their friend or just like a mega best friend. It's a different type of attraction and a different type of relationship, and it's less than altruist and romantic attraction. So the difference here between queer platonic and someone who is your best friend or someone you just have a really close friendship with is the type of commitment. Queer platonic relationships can look different to all people, like every type of relationship, but this might involve something like sharing finances with the person, moving in with them, having kids together, having a life together that is committed, but it's still a platonic relationship. Altruist attraction is more than platonic or queer platonic, but less than romantic. So a bit of that gray area between, where it's not quite romance, but it's definitely more feelings than platonic or queer platonic feelings. Romantic attraction to someone in a romantic way, and sexual attraction is being attracted to someone and wanting to engage in sexual activities with them. So prefixes to add to the suffixes we just talked about. So the first one is demi, which is the feeling of attraction only after a deep emotional bond has been made. You might be thinking, how is this different than what most people feel? The best way I think I can describe this is that a lot of people are going to say, oh, like everyone's demi, but everyone is not. The difference here is that I think people who are aromantic and allosexual can feel these connections a bit easier and quicker. And I think they're more of a want than a need. But with demi folks, that deep emotional connection is needed in order to feel that attraction. Without that connection, the attraction doesn't exist. And usually, from my experience talking to people who identify as demi, these attractions happen quite slowly. So an example here would be demisexual, meaning that the person does not feel sexual attraction unless there's a deep emotional connection made first. Gray, the prefix means attracted rarely or infrequently. So gray romantic is having romantic attraction infrequently or rarely. Pan is attraction to all genders regardless of the person's gender. So pan alterous means having alterous attraction to people of all genders, regardless of that person's gender. Here it means that person's gender doesn't really play a factor into your attraction. So Omni, which is under the pan umbrella, is to feel attraction to all genders, but the person's gender does matter in regard to that attraction, meaning that people can feel attracted to all genders, but the way they feel attracted to each of the genders may differ, or the intensity might differ. Again, can be different for everyone. An example here is omnisensual, meaning this person would have sensual attraction, wanting touch for people of all genders, but that person's gender does matter in regards to that attraction. Gyne is a prefix that can mean two things. Either the person is attracted to people who identify as female, or be attracted to people who present femininely. Or it can mean both for someone. And when we say attracted to someone who presents femininely, does not necessarily mean they have to be female. So this person could be attracted to people who are male and present femininely, people who are non-binary, genderqueer, trans, present femininely. It's just that how they present part. Their gender doesn't necessarily have to be female. So gyne platonic, people who are attracted to people who are either females, they want to be friends with people who are females, or people who present femininely. Andro, on the other hand, is attracted to people who are males and or attracted to those who present masculinely. So androqueer platonic is a queer platonic attraction to people who are either male and or people of various genders that present masculinely. So like I said earlier, split attraction model is a concept that exists. This can be used among some aro and ace folks, but not used by all. For short, it's called SAM, and it helps to better describe someone's attractions. So SAM means that some people's romantic, sexual, sensual, aesthetic, etc. attractions are different. So someone can be pan-romantic and homosexual, meaning they're attracted to all genders romantically, but sexually, they only are sexually attracted to and want to have sex with people of their own gender. So some examples from the aro ace community about different ways people use SAM or split attraction model for themselves. Someone says that they're asexual, demi-romantic, and homoromantic. So a question someone might have is how someone can be demi-romantic and homoromantic. So demi is not telling you what genders you are attracted to. Oops, sorry about that. It is only telling you how your attraction forms, if that makes sense. So some people might just say they're demi-romantic or demisexual, demisensual, but adding that homoromantic, panromantic, biromantic part in might help further for themselves and others describe their attractions more. The next person is aromantic, asexual, and biplatonic. Next one is biromantic and demisexual, demiromantic, asexual, and panplatonic, heteromantic, asexual, asexual, aromantic, biaesthetic, asensual, homoplatonic. Here, you see asensual. The A prefix means a lack of. So asexual, lack of sexual attraction. Aromantic, lack of romantic attraction. Asensual, lack of sensual attraction. It can be aplatonic, aesthetic. Again, these prefixes can go on to any of the suffixes. Autoclass sexual, autoclass sexual, or agiosexual, two words that mean the same thing, means there is a disconnect between the person and the object of arousal. Google has a lot of good definitions for that if you're more curious about more in-depth definition for autoclass sexual or agiosexual. And the person also homoromantic. The last is aromantic and homosexual. So we're going to talk a little bit about sex, touch, and romance favorability. So people can be favorable, neutral, / indifferent, averse, or repulsed. And people may fluctuate between these labels or have a combination of these labels. No one has to have just one of these labels. By that, I mean some people might be touch favorable in certain situations or with certain people or for certain time periods, while other times they're touch repulsed. And we'll start with sex favorability. So someone who is sex favorable may enjoy and engage in sex, sexual acts, or sexual relationships. Again, this has nothing to do with the attraction. People who are sex favorable, touch favorable, romance favorable can still be asexual and aromantic because wanting these activities has nothing to do with attraction. They still lack the attraction, they have the desire. Sex neutral or indifferent, having no strong feelings about sex. Sex adverse is not wanting to engage in sex for themselves, and being sex repulsed can either be repulsed by the idea of having sex that involves them or repulsed by the idea of sex in general. Another concept that isn't here because it doesn't really relate to the conversation, but sex positive would mean that someone is positive about the concept of sex, as in it's cool if the rest of the world's having sex, but like it's not for me. So that's another concept that can apply, and also that can apply for touch and romance too. So what sex favorable means to some aro and ace folks. Someone said that I am very much enthusiastic about engaging in sex with other people. The next person said I enjoy sex and would actively engage in it with consenting partners. I enjoy participating in sexual acts. And the last person said I enjoy thinking about and participating in sex and don't feel at all isolated or different on that topic. Sex neutral. The first person said, I doubt I'd initiate it, but I wouldn't mind doing it. Definitely would not have sex as frequently as allos, though. Allos is the shortened word for allosexuals or alloromantic people. Here, they're meaning allosexual people. The next person said, I don't mind it, but I'm not really bothered about it either. I am indifferent to having sex. I'm willing to have it for specific reasons. The biggest is having children. Whether sex is in my life or not doesn't matter to me. If I have it, I can enjoy it. If I don't, I won't give any thought to not having it. Sex adverse means I see it as though I don't like the idea of sex, but I can still be aroused by things disconnected to me. I do not wish to have sex myself, but I'm not repulsed by the idea of sex in general. I don't believe in shaming sex or stopping it from those who want to participate, but it isn't for me. And the last person says, anytime I picture myself in any kind of sexual situation, my brain wants to shake like an Etch-a-Sketch. Sex repulsed. The first person says, I do not wish to engage, and it seriously grosses me out. Not only am I repulsed by the thought of initiating it myself, but by the thought of it as well. Sex scenes in movies make me uncomfortable. I experience anxiety and disgust towards the idea of myself in sexual situations. I don't want to have sex with anyone, ever. And you've noticed So the difference between adverse and repulsed is aversion is just not wanting to engage in it with yourself having being a part of it. But repulsed, on the other hand, is there is that part of repulsion towards it. So uncomfortability, being grossed out, having anxiety, those kind of things, which you've seen in the responses. The next section is on touch favorability. So being touch favorable is enjoying or wanting to engage in non-sexual touch. Touch neutral and indifferent is having no strong feelings about sexual touch. Sex or touch averse, is not wanting to engage in non-sexual touch. And being touch repulsed is being repulsed by the idea of non-sexual touch involving themselves, repulsed by the idea of non-sexual touch in general. So what touch favorability means to some Aromantic folks? I am enthusiastic about engaging in physical affection with specific people if I currently have someone to project that desire onto and enjoy doing it with them. I love hugs, and my second top love language is physical touch. I define this label for myself as being favorable towards being touched by people I don't dislike. I love hugs and short kisses. It makes me feel warm and happy to be able to hold hands with my partner. For me, touch favorable means that I enjoy non-sexual physical affection. Touch neutral for Aromantic folks. I do not experience touch starvation, but I am mostly not touch repulsed either. It means I'm okay with being touched. I don't dislike holding hands, cuddling, or quick kisses, but don't seek any of it out unless that's something my partner wants. I don't particularly care for touching, and I'm fine not making any physical contact with other people. But I don't get upset if someone wants to hold hands or sit next to me / sleep on me. I don't mind when people I know touch me, like hugs, hand-holding, handshakes, pat on the back, etc., but I never initiate it. Touch aversion, or touch averse, is I'm averse to being touched in some contexts. For example, I dislike that expectation to hug relatives. I wouldn't really want to hug or cuddle people I'm not friends with. I don't like hand-holding because it feels too romance-coded. I hate it when people touch me because it's like an invasion of my space, personal space. After they touch me, it feels like their skin is still touching mine. It feels icky. I hate being hugged or touched by anybody with very few exceptions. I dislike being touched, especially if it's unexpected. Touch repulsed. The first person says it just feels so violating to have someone do that to me, and just weird to do it to anyone else. I hate it when people touch me, hugs, hand-holding. There are very few people I can stand being close physical proximity to. I'm not interested in being touched in any way, and I don't need physical touch to be happy. Uncomfortable with physical contact of any kind. The next section, there weren't too many responses to, so it is quick, but they're the same concepts as the last two sections. So romance favorable may enjoy and engage in romantic activities. Romance neutral and different, having no strong feelings towards romantic activities. Romance averse, not wanting to engage in romantic activities for themselves. Romance repulsed, being repulsed by the idea of romantic activities involving themselves. Repulsed by the idea of romantic activities in general. So what being romance neutral means to someone is there are some romantic things I enjoy and others I do not want. Being romance repulsed to someone, I've never wanted romance, and the idea / talk of me being in a relationship has always made me extremely uncomfortable. So now we're going to hear from the community about what being aro, spect and aspect mean specifically to these people in the community, as there are those standard definitions of an identity, but what it actually means to each person can differ. So demisexual. I only experience sexual attraction when I have very close bond with a person. Asexual This means that I don't have sexual attraction, don't want sex, and I don't want to kiss someone or be sexually touched by someone. Agiosexual, or we heard the other version of it, autoclass sexual earlier, is to mean I feel disconnected between erotica and myself. I'm able to enjoy erotica and have a libido, but never imagine myself in that scenario. I feel repulsed by the idea of having sex, and I do not experience any sexual attraction to anyone, fictional or real. Ace flux. Ace flux means that my position on the ace spectrum fluctuates. I never feel sexual attraction, but sometimes my desire will fluctuate. And sometimes I will feel I identify with agiosexual one day, classic asexual the next. Gray asexual means to this person that they rarely I feel that my aesthetic attraction for others crosses over into sexual attraction, but those times are very elusive and consistent and brief, typically gone before they can be acted upon. Demi-romantic it means it takes a while to develop romantic feelings for someone. I can go very long periods of times without ever having feelings like that, and when I do, they're strong and hard to get over for years after. Quasi-romantic means to this person that they cannot tell the difference between platonic, sensual, romantic attraction. I don't know if I've ever had a crush. Romance is confusing, and I really don't get it. This person says a romantic means to them that I never feel romantic attraction towards other people. Aeroflex, my ability to feel romantic attraction comes and goes. I might feel the need for romantic coded actions, words with someone I like one day, and then for a week I only feel platonic or altruist attraction. Romantic to this person means that I sometimes go through phases where I like someone and think I want to date them romantically, but as soon as they reciprocate any romantic feelings back, or if I ever start dating them, my attraction for them disappears. So this section, I asked people in the communities, the Aromantic communities, what they really want allies to know about being aromantic and asexual. So these are going to be a little bit longer quotes, but if you're not sure what asexuality and aromanticism is, try thinking of someone you're definitely not attracted to. Family would be a good example. Then imagine that's the level of attraction you're feeling for everyone, no matter their gender. That's what being asexual or aromantic feels like. The next one, every part of the spectrum has different experiences. We might be repulsed, neutral, etc. Some of us might interpret it differently too. It's about our attraction. Asexual doesn't mean you don't have sex, hate sex. It depends. We're just not attracted to people sexually. Same with aromantic, but romantically. We have feelings too. We're normal. We're human. We face difficulties too. Don't judge us from the one person on the spectrum's opinions. We're all different. But aspec means both the aromantic and asexual spectrum. So if you're talking about both of them, you would say aspec. So what aspec speak for them. Speak their voices, let them tell their experiences. And thank you for allies, for your support. We highly appreciate it. For asexuals and aromantics, it's not a choice. There are people who choose to abstain from relationships or sex, but aspect and arospect people don't simply don't experience those attractions. They aren't repressing any desires. They simply just don't have them. And that doesn't mean that make them broken. Not everyone defines love in the same way, and not everyone experiences it all, romantic or otherwise. Point being, be aware that society's projections of love, relationships, and what should be important to us in those respects does not always reflect the experience of people who are aspect. And dismantling expectations of how we are supposed to feel is beneficial to aspect and people in general. There are 3 very basic things you can do to support us. Take the time to read and learn about us. talk about us, share and like our social media posts, spread information about us in positive ways, both in your private and, if possible, in your professional life. Participate in the ACE community survey. I believe that is held by Aven. If you want to look that up, you should be able to just type in Aven, AVEN, ACE community survey, and that should pop up. Opens every October to create some control group data for us, even when you're not asexual. Many ace and aro folks feel isolated in life due to society's strong emphasis on sexual and romantic relationships. Many have also tried to force themselves into these relationships to attain a sense of normality. The main goal of our community is to spread awareness that these identities, so that aces and aros don't feel broken like many of us did. If we tell you that we are ace or aro, ask what that means to us, because there are so many different ways to be ace and aro, and people often make assumptions, especially if they're not familiar with the different kinds of attraction. Different kinds of attraction here are the split attraction model that we talked about earlier, like aesthetic, sensual, romantic, sexual, etc. We know there are different kinds of love. Not everyone has the same boundaries as you. I'm not sad about being aromantic or asexual. I am happy with my identity and very grateful for my label. Aro ace folks are still LGBTQ+ and inherently queer. Please include aro and ace representation. Not every story needs oversaturated romance. That just because you might not understand it, you can still respect it, and please be aware that your experience most likely won't align with someone in the ace or aro on the ace or aro spectrums. So please don't try to tell someone it's just a phase. Normalize atypical relationship structure and communication. Relationships and desire to me look substantially different, and I often feel alien before finding ace and aro spaces because of this desire for my platonic relationships and the lack of society's normalization of such relationships. A few more quotes about how to be a good ally to asexual and aromantic people. That we have just as much a capacity to love as everyone else. Just because we may not have romantic love does not mean we don't love our friends, family, and more. Just be accepting, even if it doesn't make sense to you or seem real. Don't try to attribute these orientation identities to someone else, like life experience or medical conditions. That implies it is something that needs to be fixed, and it's not. I would like allies to know that we need more understanding from those outside our community, learn and understand, and help others to learn and understand. I wish ACE-spec community was more visible and understood. Don't assume ace and aro people are missing out on anything. If you know anyone on the ace and or aro spectrums, just be supportive. Trust that they know themselves well enough to choose this label, and don't try to invalidate their identity. So that was it for tonight. I know a lot of these concepts were confusing. People might have a lot of questions. If you do have questions that you want a deeper understanding of, or you can't find on Google, you can always email humanrights@we.net, and myself or someone else on the team will answer your questions or try to find these answers. So like you heard from the ally section, try to just understand and learn more about these two spectrums. I'm on these two spectrums myself, and they're not concepts I learned until last year. A lot of people don't know about them. So spend 10 minutes once a week even, and just Google and try to find resources on this. Like I said, Aven, AVEN, is a good resource about the asexual spectrum. And you can find a wealth of resources out there to educate yourself and start educating others and letting others know that you're an ally to the asexual and aromantic spectrums and why you're an ally. Coming up after this, our next episode of this How to Be an Ally series will be on pan and bi-attracted orientations. And if you keep an eye out on our Facebook at Facebook/The We Campaign. You'll be able to hear more about that. You can also subscribe to our newsletters. If you go to we.net, you'll be able to subscribe there and keep updated on this series. Thank you for joining us.